Hey guys, it's Matt, train delivered down at 43. Today I've got a review for you on this Lionel Legacy New York Central 763E Vision Line Hudson. It's made by Lionel and it is one fantastic engine. This should be the second review video. My first video has now been deleted from my YouTube channel, but in my first video I put in Eric Siegel's review so you can take a look at the history of this locomotive, and it's pretty amazing in my opinion. I will link it in this video so you can take a look at it just like in the first video. What I will do is I will go over the details and then we will do a sound session and then a running session. So let's get on. Let's start off with some of the basics of this steam locomotive. This engine is called a J1E 464 Hudson. Now some of you guys who may be new to this are saying, Matt, what does that mean? Well, the 464 refers to the wheel arrangement on the engine on the underside. Right, in the lead truck you have 4 wheels. You have 6 driving wheels, 3 per side. And then you have 4 wheels on the trailing truck. And that's how they got it to call it 464. Now J1E, that is the class name for the engine. Like, for example, if you hear somebody call an S3 Northern, S3 is the class name that the railroad gives it. Like another one be L3, that's a Mohawk. You know, there's so many different ones. T1, you know, there's a lot of different ones. All that refers to is that's the class name that the railroad uses for it. We're going to start off by taking a look at just the locomotive. We're going to look at the details and then we'll take a look at the tender. Here's a look at the front of the engine on the pilot. On the pilot you have a nice cow catcher which has been applied. You have a dummy drop coupler which lifts up and then it'll lock into place just like that. If you want the 3-rail coupler to double head the engine, Lionel packages the engine with a 3-rail coupler which you can install. All you do is you take out one screw on the underside and then this scale coupler will pop right out and you can install that dummy coupler, and that way you can double head the engine. Now that's not required, it's only if you want to double head the engine. You have a very nicely applied coupler cut bar right here. There is no chain and pin, but that's okay because for the drop couplers that's not feasible. The reason is because the coupler drops. If you had a plate connected to this, like for example, I'll pull up another engine. This is a Legacy Union Pacific 412 too, and it's got a chain and pin because the coupler rests right up here, and this is a drop coupler, and you can't have that because if you had that, for one thing, it could bind up the coupler and hit something, or because the pin is made of metal, if it's too long it could short out on something like a switch or the center rail or maybe a solder joint or something like that, and it could short out the engine. So that's why they don't include one, but that in my opinion is okay. To come up top a little bit more, you have a headlight which has the Rule 17 feature. I disable it when I'm running the engine. The reason is what Rule 17 really is. When the engine is sitting still, the headlight is dim. Well, for steam engines and older diesels like a E8 or something like that, the Rule 17 feature, they didn't have that because that's a new standard that has to be put on locomotives now, but that wasn't required back in the 30s and 40s and 50s when they made steam engines and some of the early diesels like the E8s, the F3s, that type of thing. They didn't need that feature, so that's why I disabled it. You can keep it on or off if you want. I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. On the side here you have lighted number boards, which when the track power is on, which it's on now, the number boards will be lit. That tells you that the track power is on and that the engine is receiving power. To come up top a little bit more, you have lighted marker lights, and you can turn these off by the Legacy or the TMCC remote. And finally, as an added touch, the front of the boiler swings open. You have to kind of tuck the headlight wire underneath, but other than that, it looks really nice. It's a very nice feature for Lionel to add, and to tell you the truth, they really don't have to add it. It's one of those things that is nice, but you don't necessarily have to have it there, and it's always a nice little touch. Here's what a side of the engineer. Here's the engineer's side of it. You have handrail detail, which goes all the way back to the cab. You have this nice piping detail right here. You have some more piping right down here. You got the nice running boards. Back here you really can't see it. You can't see the whole thing, but you do have a nice air tank. And then right up under here, it might be hard to see, but you do have piping, and this piping extends back to the ash pan, and there's other pipes. You'll be able to see this in a minute when we look at the cab. And then right up here you have another little box right up here. Here's a view from the other direction. You have the handrail piece, like I said, and this piece of pipe extends down to right here. Here's the rest of that air tank, and this pipe extends to here, and then there's these huge pipes right up here, which is nice, and then there's these pipes right here that go to the injectors. Here's a look at the fireman's side. The pipe that was on the engineer's side is not present, but you do have this pipe here and this pipe, and you also have the Lionel builder's plate. You kind of can't really see it, but it's right around here, and that's distinctive of this engine, because in case you guys don't know, the quick backstory on this engine is Lionel made this engine, which is the gray Vision Hudson, and they also made the black 5344, which is the iconic engine. Everybody knows about that. But what they wanted to do is they wanted to make it as realistic to the 1937 model as they could, but all they wanted to do was add legacy to it and give it a couple Vision Line features. I'll show you these Vision Line features in a few minutes. And that's why it's there. So if you were to look on it, all you would see is the Lionel, the built by Lionel. That's all you would see, and that's distinctive of this engine. Here's a look at the cylinder and a little bit of the drive gear. It looks really nice when the engine is in operation. Got these nice nuts on the side here, and the engine comes with full replacement traction tires, which are in the bag with the coupler. And right here it comes with this little wrench tool, which you can use to remove this screw, which will allow you to remove some of the drive gear in order to take off the side rods in order to replace the tires. And it might be hard to tell, but the pilot truck right up here is a little oversized. As you guys know, that's typical O scale. You really can't help that. But what Lionel has done is they've made it a little bit better. They've tried their best, and I think it fulfills the purpose. What they have is they have a scale pilot truck. You can attach it. You take the screw from the old one, and then there's a wire that goes up here. You take the screw from that wire, connect it to this wire, and take the screw and connect it to this plate right here, and that connects the pilot truck. That way it gets the electric power it needs, and you got a little more pro-typical look. Now that's not required as well. You can use it if you want. You don't have to. We're not, but that's us. Here's a look at the fireman's side of the outside of the cab. You have the pipes, which are different from the engineer's side. I'll show you that in a minute. You have the closed windows, which is also another thing about these engines, is that the original Locomotive from 1937 had the closed windows, which that is, they kept that on the model. Normally on newer steam engines they will have windows that would be able to open and close, like they would have this rear window be able to open and close, but they wanted to keep the design of this as realistic as they could. Here's a look at the engineer's side. You still have that pipe, you have some other pipes, and they have the injectors, which has pipes going to it. And this engine does not have the injector smoke. For any of you guys who are wondering, it does not have that feature. I will get into the vision line features as well as the smoke features when we take a look at the top of the engine right now. Here's a look at some of the top of the engine. Right up here you have a smoke unit, well, smokestack, and it does have an upper smoke unit inside. And to fill it, all you do is just pour your smoke fluid directly down the stack right in here and just squirt it down. Now the stack to the right of it, you might not be able to see it very well, but it's a very small stack right here. That does not actually put out smoke, it's just a auxiliary stack, and it's just decorative. Right here, this is my favorite feature. It's the swing bell. When the bell rings, the bell will swing back in time, back and forth in time with the sounds of it. It's really cool, and I also think I know how it works. Underneath here there's a small little magnet, and I think that attracts to the piece underneath the bell, and that's how it makes it swing. If you know how it works, I'd really like to know, because this is the coolest feature I've ever seen on any O-gauge steam engine from anybody. Right up here, the sand dome right up here removes, just like that, held on by two magnets. And then right in here you have your legacy controls. I will zoom in on those right now. Here's a close-up of the switches. Right up here on the top you have the program run switch. If you're placed in a program mode, you would assign the engine the ID number that you want to give it, insert the module, and program it. And then when you want to run it again, flip it back to run. You have the Odyssey speed control. You can turn this on and off. The main smoke unit, which is the smokestack. Then the auxiliary smoke unit. This controls the smoking whistle. I will show you that in a minute. And then you can turn that on and off. Now you can, it's important to note, this is the only way, let's say you don't want to run the whistle. If you don't want to run the whistle smoke, you have to shut it off here. You cannot turn off the whistle off the remote. You have to shut it off here. And just like with the Challenger, I think so anyway, if you were to flip the switch, you cannot, if you were to flip the switch on, but let's say in the middle of your session you want to shut it off, you'd have to shut down the engine and fire it back up. You'd have to shut the engine down, flip the switch, and then continue running. And then the piece, it doesn't matter which way it goes, because it just pops on just like that. This is the second vision line feature. This is the last vision line feature on this Legacy Hudson, and that is the smoking whistle, which is right here. It may be hard to see. Let me move the whistle a little bit. There's a hole right underneath the whistle here, and when you were to blow the whistle, you would see steam shoot out of that hole. Well, you would see smoke here, and would give the illusion of steam being shot out of the whistle. To load the whistle with fluid, you pop it off just like that, And you can add the fluid one of two ways. You can do what I do, which we use a needlepoint dispenser, and we just pop it in there and just squirt it right down. Or Lionel supplies this is with the engine. Lionel supplies a small funnel with the engine, in which you can pop it in like that, and then you could add your fluid. You just take your fluid, and then you would squirt it right down a stack, just like that, and then you would pop the dropper or whatever you're using, pop it back in. And then you would take the funnel out and then replace the whistle. We normally use the dropper, or the needle point. That's what I use. That's what I use sometimes on the main smoke unit. But that's us. And it smokes very well. Smokes good. Now, one tip I have found with this is to, if you let the engine sit, like you can have it running, but if you don't blow the whistle for a little while, or if you have the whistle swinging it off, then you can get when you blow the whistle again, you would get a little more smoke action out of it. But that's us. And then you would blow down the hole, and then you would replace the whistle just like that, and then you would fire up the engine and run it. Moving back past the whistle, you have a separately applied item right here. You have some very nice separately applied pop-off valves, a dynamo generator, and then on the top of the cab you have rivet detail. Then you have 3 roof vents which all open up, and then they all close as well. Here's a look inside the cab. It may be a little hard to see, so what I'll do is I will shine a flashlight in there so you can see it a little bit better. Inside here you have crew figures on either side. You have a cab light inside. You have a firebox, and some of the gauges inside on the back head actually light up, and that, in my opinion, is really cool. I really like that. That's another cool feature of this engine. And right up under here, you can't see it, but underneath here you have the Vision Line registration number. And of course on the bottom you have the wireless tether, which allows the electronics in the engine to communicate with the tender. So now let's take a look at the tender. Here's a look at the front of the tender. The front of the tender is not that detailed, but of course it's the reason why it's the least decorated is because you don't see it that much when you're really running the engine, so it's kind of hard to see, so therefore it's not going to be nearly as detailed. But you have grab iron detail on the other side. Right down here you have die cast trucks. You have some ladder detail which you really can't see from this angle. Then you have the other part to the tether, which has a little eye for the eye on the other side. You might be able to see it in the back there. And then you have a set of cold doors. On the side of the tender you have rivet detail. Then you have a very crisp Near Central logo. To come up top a little bit, you have a load of realistic coal, which is made up of real coal. On the end of the tender you do have a ladder detail, this little item right here, and then the water hatch. If you open it up, it's a little hard to get open. I really cannot use my finger to get it open. Sometimes it's kind of tough. I start it with that and then I use a screwdriver to help. What I do is I normally stick a flathead screwdriver into the little grab iron and then just pop it open, but sometimes I can get by with my finger. But right under here you have the volume control. If you turn it counterclockwise, the volume will decrease, and then if you turn it clockwise, the volume will increase. And then finally, here's a look at the back of the tender. You have a very nice ladder piece, a reverse light, 5331 on the bottom. You have another grab-on detail, the coupler cut bar right here, which is black, and then you have a coupler. Now it's kind of cool. I don't know if this is our engine or if it's everybody's, but kind of the cool thing is that from what I've seen is when you fire the coupler cut bar actually moves up, which I think that's pretty cool. I don't know if that's ours or what it is, but that's a pretty cool feature too. What I want to do before we get this engine moving and powered up is I want to give you my favorite feature on the engine. In my opinion, my favorite feature would have to be, there's no question, it's that bell, the swinging bell. That is the coolest feature. That is just industry leading in my opinion. That is just really, really cool. And I got the box that the engine came in behind it. Now I don't know if you can see, but it says 700E right there. They used the top from the black, and honestly, if you look at the video from certain angles here, you can kind of almost see it. Almost looks like the black 700E. It almost looks like that on the video, which I think is kind of cool. But anyway, let's go ahead. And for you guys who are not familiar with this is a Lionel Legacy engine. The best way to run it is to use the Lionel Legacy command control remote, and following the instructions that comes with the engine, which you should always read the instructions. You program the engine into your remote, giving it any ID number you wish. Then you hit the set button, and you also insert the engine memory module, which is an orange module, which is specific to this engine. And if you try to load another engine into this one, what'll happen is it'll read the engine data from that engine that you loaded, which would be the wrong engine data, and you would not get the correct icons and stuff like that. But anyway, let's go ahead, and since this is a Visionline engine, it does say near Central 5331 in the crew talk. So let's go ahead and fire it up and give it a listen.
5331, do you copy? Over. 5331, copy that. Over. Please start up and stand by for track orders. Roger that. Out.
Now that the engine is fired up, I want to show you the Visionline features, starting off with the swinging bell. I've zoomed in on the bell so you can get a better look at it, and watch what happens when I use the bell on a Legacy remote. How cool is that? And it's swinging in time to the bell sounds. Now, unlike other Legacy engines, you cannot get a single hit bell. If you tap the bell, this is what you're gonna hear. It's gonna do it 3 times. You cannot get a single hit bell like you do with other Legacy engines. But in my opinion, I really like the swinging action. Okay, here's a close-up of the whistle, and watch what happens when I blow the whistle on the engine. You're gonna see steam shoot out of the whistle, which is pretty cool. Here we go. Let me zoom out so you can get kind of a full picture, because as you increase the whistle intensities, the smoke level does get a little higher. That is pretty cool, man. Now let's go ahead and hear some of the accent sounds. They got a blower, they got a cylinder blower-on effect, which is really nice. They got a water injector sound. They got the coal sound, which you use the R button, you press and hold it.
My goal's full. Over. Copy that. Out.
I don't know if you can tell in the video, but when I hit the Rule 17 on, this is what'll happen. This is with it on. And I don't know if you can tell in the video, but the headlight dimmed. If I turn it off, that's its full brightness. Kind of see it in the number boards a little bit. You kind of see it through there. Here's it off. Here's it back on. And then the class lamps on the upper part, you can turn those on and off. Now, if you don't add the module, that's okay, because these are the icons that you get. These are the normal ones up here: the volume up, volume down, crew talk, water injector, shutdown, blowdown, telecom, smoke down, smoke high, and reset. These two over here and these two are extras. These are the these are the marker lights, and this is the Rule 17. Well, if you don't add the engine, that's okay. If you press and hold aux 2, I believe you have to be on version 1.4 or higher. We're on version 1.5, and you press and hold aux 2 like this, and you get this menu. And right here you have the Rule 17, and you have the class lamps. And these here, this is Mars light, ground lights, doghouse lights. This is also ground lights. These are tender marker lights for an engine that has tender marker lights, like a 412-2, like we have. And you can turn those on and off there. And then if you just tap aux 2, the headlight will turn off, and the marker lights and the cab light will turn off. Here's a view from the cab, and I got the cab lights on. I'm going to turn them off now. And as you can see, the white, those are the backlit gauges right there. And I don't know if you can really see it from this angle, but they have the flickering firebox in there too. And then you turn the cab light on, and that's what you get. So that is really cool, those backlit. Okay, we're about ready to roll this engine out and take it for a spin. But before we do that, this engine is the first engine ever to have Lionel's new sequence mode feature. If you don't know what that is, sequence mode is a feature that when you activate it, you'll get sounds that are pre-recorded. Like, for example, you'll get whistle sequences for different speeds and departure whistle. You'll get bell on below a speed of 23, and other cool features. So to do it, you press and hold aux 1, and you'll get a ding ding toot sound to tell you that's been activated. Now when you hear that sound, the whistle will not smoke, nor will the bell ring. But I don't really care, you know. I mean, you can't really get to go that fast anyway. So, but anyway. Okay, it's activated, so now let's go ahead and move her out.
This is NYC 5331. We're on the move. Over. Roger that. Out. Dispatcher, New York Central 5331. Are we clear through the junction? Over. That's affirmative. Your track is clear. Over. Roger that. 5331 out. NYC 5331. Your Lionel is clear inbound. Over. Copy that. 5331 out. Dispatcher, this is NYC 5331. Are we clear? Yes, we are clear. Over. Copy that, dispatcher. 5331 out. I'm at low speed. Out. 5331. Please go to limited speed. Over. Engine is at limited speed. Out. We're at a complete stop. Let you know when I'm moving. Out. Going to the register room to sign out. 5331 out.
Before I let you go, these two pieces of paper are very important. This right here is the instruction manual. Always read this before you run any engine, because on these delicate vision line locomotives, if you break something, like for example, if you find some way to break the bell, the swinging bell feature, which I don't know how that would happen, if something happens to the engine and you break it, you might have to send it off to Lionel or your local hobby shop for repair, and then you would have to sit and wait for however long to do whatever you screwed up on for them to fix it. And this right here is the module loading instructions. So if you guys are not familiar with how to load the module into your Legacy remote, there they are right here. All the steps, everything you need to do, and how to do it. And then also in the back there are how to install the scale pilot wheel, installing the coupler, as well as replacing the traction tires in here, as well as the lights. These are LED lights. You cannot replace these by yourself. You have to take them to a service station, and also make sure if the lights are not working, make sure you do not hit aux 2 on the remote to turn them off, because if you did that, then you might be sending it in for nothing. So that's something to look, and it already says right here, check that aux 2 used to turn the lights off was not used. So I just wanted to show you that. Like I said, this engine is just fantastic. This is one of my favorite Vision Line steam engines. In my opinion, everybody's favorite is that Challenger. But you know, I mean, there are so many nice engines nowadays. These Legacy Vision Line engines they're just too cool. I mean, the bell, you know, that bell is the coolest thing, you know. When we first bought this engine, actually when we first saw it, we saw it at Rich Hudson Train Man on YouTube. He has it, and he was running it during the open house that I took some video on. and we saw it and we fell in love with it. But the best was we went to see a guy named Al, and he had this, the gray one. My uncle immediately wanted one. He was like, wow, this is a nice looking engine. And let me tell you, I don't blame him. This gray color is very, very nice. I really like it a lot. Now, if you don't want the gray, you can get the black. It's in number 5344, which is the number that the original engine came in, and that is the 700E. That is not the 763E like this one. And that engine is just really cool too. Now Rich has the 700E. I did make a quick, like 45-second clip on it. I'll throw that in the description. And until the next one, I'm Matt, Train 119943. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.